Sometimes you need to do what's best for yourself, even if other people don't understand it. I'm Emily. I'm 27, and I work in marketing for this mid-sized tech company downtown. Sean and I have been together for 2 years, and while everyone thinks he's this great catch, they don't see what I see behind closed doors. He's got this whole controlling thing going on where he needs to know where I am every second, but then acts all hurt when I ask him basic questions about his day. The guy literally checks my phone when he thinks I'm sleeping, but gets defensive if I even glance at his screen. Anyway, about 3 months ago, I ran into Hunter at this networking event. Hunter's this guy from college who everyone used to think was gay because he hung around the theater crowd, but turns out he was just more cultured than the rest of us. Now he's got his own creative consulting business and actually travels to interesting places instead of talking about maybe taking a vacation someday, like Sean does. We started texting after that event, and look, it wasn't anything inappropriate at first. Just two old friends catching up, sharing memes, talking about real topics instead of whatever sports game is on this week. But Hunter made me remember what it felt like to have someone actually listen when I talked. Someone who didn't just nod along while scrolling through his phone. The contrast was pretty obvious when I'd be sitting next to Sean on our couch, him playing some mindless mobile game while I'm having these deep conversations with Hunter about art, travel, life goals, things Sean never seemed interested in discussing. So when Hunter mentioned he was planning this weekend trip to Miami and suggested I should join him, my brain immediately started working on logistics. Obviously, I couldn't tell Sean I was going on a romantic getaway with another man. He's possessive enough that he'd probably show up at the airport or something dramatic like that. The work conference story just made sense. My company sends people to conferences all the time, and Sean never pays attention to the details anyway. I did my research beforehand, looked up what kinds of marketing conferences happen in Miami, made sure I had answers ready for any questions he might ask. The beauty of dating someone who thinks he's so smart is that he usually just assumes he knows everything already. Last Monday, over dinner, at this Italian place we go to sometimes, I casually dropped the news. I've got a work conference coming up in Miami, I said, trying to sound appropriately bored about it. Thursday through Sunday, vendor presentations, networking, the usual corporate stuff. Sean actually looked up from his pasta for once. Miami in November sounds nice, he said. Want me to come along? I could work remotely from the hotel. That's when I had to shut it down fast. No, you can't come. It's strictly employees only, and they're really particular about that policy. Plus, I'll be stuck in conference rooms all day. You'd be miserable. I watched his expression shift slightly, like he was processing something. But then he just shrugged. Fair enough. Have a good time. Maybe bring back some of that Cuban coffee. He went back to eating like nothing happened, and I felt this rush of excitement mixed with relief. I was actually going to pull this off. Sean was so predictable. Give him a reasonable explanation, and he'd accept it without digging deeper. The rest of the week I spent planning what to pack, researching restaurants Hunter and I could try, imagining how incredible it would feel to spend 4 whole days with someone who actually appreciated me. Sean went about his usual routine: work, gym, couch, repeat, while I coordinated with Hunter about flight times and hotel details. Wednesday night, I was packing my nicest dresses and swimwear when Sean made some comment about it being a lot of cute outfits for boring business meetings. The hotel has a nice pool, I said without missing a beat. Might as well get some sun between sessions. Which hotel again? He asked, and I felt this tiny spike of anxiety. The Fontainebleau. Company always books the nice places for these things. He nodded and went back to watching TV. Crisis averted. Thursday morning came, and I was practically vibrating with excitement. Sean gave me his usual distracted goodbye kiss and told me to text when I landed safely. I promised I would grab my suitcase and headed for the airport feeling more alive than I had in months. The flight to Miami felt like freedom. Hunter had texted me photos of the hotel lobby, the view from his room, asking what time my flight got in. I kept my responses casual in case Sean somehow saw them later, but inside I was counting down the minutes until I could finally be myself again. I landed Thursday afternoon and took a cab straight to the Fontainebleau. The place was even more gorgeous than the photos, all glass and marble, and that Miami glamour you see in movies. I checked in and immediately texted Hunter that I'd arrived. He met me in the lobby 20 minutes later, and seeing him again reminded me why I'd been so drawn to him in college. He had this confidence that Sean completely lacked, this way of moving through the world like he belonged everywhere he went. We hugged hello, and I felt this electric current I hadn't experienced in years. Ready for the best weekend of your life? He asked. And I absolutely was. We spent Thursday evening at this incredible rooftop restaurant overlooking the ocean, drinking wine and talking about everything we'd missed in each other's lives. Hunter told me about his business, the places he'd traveled, his plans for expanding internationally. I found myself sharing dreams I'd forgotten I even had, about maybe starting my own marketing consultancy, traveling more, living somewhere exciting instead of our boring suburban bubble. You're too smart to be stuck in some corporate job forever, Hunter said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. You deserve so much more than that. When's the last time Sean had said anything like that to me? When's the last time he'd even asked about my career goals or treated me like I had ambitions beyond being his convenient girlfriend? We went back to Hunter's room that night, and I'm not going to pretend it was anything other than exactly what I had been hoping for. For the first time in months, I felt desired, appreciated, like I was with someone who actually saw me as more than just a fixture in his routine. Friday morning, we ordered room service and ate breakfast on the balcony overlooking the pool. Hunter had planned this whole day for us. Brunch at some trendy spot in South Beach. Shopping? Maybe some time by the water? I posted a quick Instagram story of a random conference room I found online with the caption, "Conference life is exhausting just to keep up appearances." Then put my phone away to focus on enjoying myself. We got a cabana by the pool and ordered champagne, even though it wasn't even 10 a.m. yet. Hunter kept making me laugh with these stories about his clients. And when he offered to put sunscreen on my back, I didn't think twice about it. We were just two adults on vacation, enjoying each other's company. That's when things started going sideways, though I didn't know it at the time. My phone started ringing around 2 p.m. Victoria, my boss. I ignored it the first few times. I was supposed to be at a conference, after all, but she kept calling. So finally, I answered while walking away from Hunter. "Hi, Victoria. The conference is going great," I said, trying to sound professional while slightly out of breath from the sun and champagne. "Which sessions have you attended today?" she asked, and something in her tone made my stomach tighten. "Oh, the morning session on digital transformation was really insightful. I improvised. The speaker from, the connection is terrible here. Can you hear me okay? What company was presenting?" My mind went blank. "Johnson Marketing Solutions," I said, hoping that sounded legitimate. "The Wi-Fi is really spotty in the conference center. I need you to send me photos from the event, registration materials, your conference badge, anything that shows you're actually there." My heart started pounding. Photos. Of course. My phone's been acting up, but I can send them Monday when I'm back in the office. I need them now. Emily, the line went quiet for what felt like forever. "I understand." I finally managed. "Let me see what I can do." I hung up and walked back to Hunter, who could obviously tell something was wrong. "Everything okay?" "Babe, my boss knows," I said, sinking into the lounge chair. "Someone told her I'm not actually at a conference. She wants proof, photos, badges, registration materials." Hunter sat up, suddenly alert. "Can't you just fake something?" "She's asking for specific things. Speaker names, agenda details, conference badges. I can't just Google image search my way out of this." I spent the next 2 hours frantically trying to create fake conference materials on my phone. But everything looked obviously photoshopped or didn't match up with real events. Around 4 p.m., Victoria called again. "Emily, I need you on the next flight back. Be in my office first thing tomorrow morning." "Victoria? I can explain tomorrow morning?" 9 a.m. sharp. The call ended and I just sat there staring at my phone. Hunter tried to comfort me, but I could see the wheels turning in his head, probably calculating how this drama was going to affect his weekend plans. "Maybe it won't be that bad," he said, but we both knew I was screwed. I flew back that night, leaving Hunter to enjoy Miami solo. The whole flight home I kept thinking about how I was going to explain this to Sean, how I was going to explain this to anyone, but mostly I was furious that someone had deliberately sabotaged me. Who even knew I was in Miami? Who would care enough to rat me out to my boss? I texted Sean that the conference was ending early due to some emergency, and I'd be home late. He responded with a simple, "Okay." Safe travels like he always did. At least he wasn't suspicious. When I got home around 11 p.m., Sean was already asleep. I slipped into bed quietly, but I was too wired to sleep. Tomorrow I was probably going to get fired, and I still had no idea how this had all fallen apart so quickly. Friday morning came way too soon. I got dressed in my most professional outfit and drove to the office, rehearsing explanations that all sounded pathetic even to me. Victoria's assistant waved me straight into her office, where Victoria was sitting behind her desk with a stack of papers and a very serious expression. "Sit down." "Emily," I sat, trying to project confidence I absolutely didn't feel. "I know you weren't at any conference in Miami," she said without preamble. "I have photos of you at the Fontainebleau pool with some man, drinking champagne and clearly not attending any business events." My stomach dropped. Photos? How did she have photos? I also pulled your expense reports from the last year, she continued, sliding the papers across the desk. 3 other conferences that don't appear to exist. Vegas in March, Denver in July, Austin in September. Nearly $12,000 in fraudulent claims. I stared at the papers, my mind racing. Those other trips. I'd been so careful. Or so I thought. Vegas was supposed to be a digital marketing summit, but I'd actually gone with my sister for her bachelorette party. Denver was meant to be a training seminar, but Hunter and I had spent the weekend skiing. Austin was supposedly a workshop, but we'd gone to music festivals instead. This is termination for cause, Victoria said. Security will escort you out in 10 minutes. We're also pursuing criminal charges for fraud. Criminal charges? My voice came out as a squeak. $12,000 in fraudulent expense claims. Emily, that's felony theft. Security appeared in the doorway before I could respond. I was walked out of the building with my personal items in a cardboard box. Past coworkers who stared and whispered. The humiliation was crushing. But worse was the realization that someone had been watching me, documenting my lies, setting me up for this fall. I sat in my car in the parking lot and called Hunter, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried again an hour later, then again that afternoon. Nothing. When I finally reached him that evening, his voice was cold and distant. Look, Emily, this whole situation is too messy for me. I think we should take a break while you sort out your legal issues. A break? After everything we'd shared? After all his talk about me deserving better. He was bailing the second things got complicated. I drove home in a daze, trying to figure out how to tell Sean I'd lost my job. But when I pulled into our driveway, there was a box of my things sitting on the front porch. My clothes, my toiletries, my books, everything I kept at his place, neatly packed up like I was some kind of delivery. Sean opened the door before I could knock. We need to talk, he said, but his tone was different, colder than I'd ever heard it. Sean, I can explain everything? Can you explain the fake conference? The weekend with Hunter? The expense fraud? My mouth fell open. I followed you to Miami. Emily, I saw everything. I recorded everything. I'm the one who sent the photos to Victoria. The world tilted sideways. Sean had followed me. Quiet? Predictable Sean, who never paid attention to details, had somehow figured out my entire plan and systematically destroyed my life. You followed me. That's stalking. I went to a public hotel in a city I'm allowed to visit. You're the one who lied about work conferences to cheat with your supposedly gay best friend. I tried to push past him into the house. Our house. Where I'd been planning to move in next month, but he blocked me. Everything you own is in that box. He said, We're done. 2 years. Sean? You're throwing away 2 years over one mistake. One mistake. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. The fake conferences? The expense fraud? The lies about Hunter being gay? Cheating on me for months? That's not one mistake. That's a pattern. I started crying then. Real tears. Because everything was falling apart at once. I lost my job. They're pressing charges. I could go to jail. That's what happens when you commit fraud. You ruined my life. You ruined your own life. I just stopped being part of it. He went back inside and closed the door, leaving me standing there with my box of belongings and nowhere to go. I ended up at my mom's house, trying to explain why I was suddenly unemployed and potentially facing criminal charges. Patricia listened to my heavily edited version of events and offered to let me stay in my old room while I figured things out. But the hits kept coming. Hunter had blocked me on everything. My former coworkers were gossiping about the fraud charges. Word spread through our social circle that I'd been cheating on Sean. And suddenly people who'd been friendly for years were giving me the cold shoulder. The worst part was finding out that Sean had somehow turned this disaster into an opportunity for himself. Victoria had been so impressed with his professional integrity in reporting the fraud that she'd hired him as an IT consultant. He was making extra money every month while I was facing felony charges and living in my childhood bedroom. 3 months later, I'm still fighting the criminal case. My lawyer says we might be able to plea down to a misdemeanor if I pay full restitution. But that's $12,000 I don't have, since I can't get a decent job with pending fraud charges on my record. I'm working part-time at a retail store, trying to save money and rebuild my life. Sean's doing great, from what I hear through mutual friends. He's got that consulting contract. He's been traveling for work. Apparently he's even dating someone new. Meanwhile, I'm 28 years old, living with my parents, and facing the possibility of jail time because I wanted one weekend of happiness. The thing that really gets me is how everyone acts like Sean is some kind of hero for destroying my career and my future. Like following your girlfriend to another city and secretly recording her isn't completely psychotic behavior. Yeah, I made some bad choices, but his reaction was way over the top. A normal person would have just broken up with me and moved on. Instead, He systematically ruined my life and somehow convinced everyone he was the victim in all this. That's the part I can't get over. How he managed to flip the script and make himself look like the wronged party when he's the one who stalked me across state lines and got me arrested. But here's what I've learned. Sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who will hurt you worst. Sean spent 2 years pretending to be this laid-back, trusting boyfriend while apparently keeping track of every lie I told and every mistake I made. That's not love, that's surveillance. I'm not saying I was perfect, but I didn't deserve to have my entire life destroyed over a weekend in Miami. Some people just can't handle when their partner outgrows them, and instead of letting go gracefully, they burn everything to the ground